This event has come to its 9th year. The contest not only aims to improve your English linguistics, but also in other aspects such as your performances and self-confidence to speak in front of the public. So, and that's also the reason why last year in 2011, the contest has attracted over 2,000 applicants in Hong Kong. Whether you have or haven't, journey towards having a better and more effective English public speaking skill has already started. We're extremely honored to have invited a very professional and experienced trainer as well today with us, Mr. Kwang-Yue Yang, and he is going to share with you some very useful public speaking skills. Let's just put our hands together for our guest today. Thank you. Also, other than this, I would also like to talk to you about the Sir T.L. Yang English Ambassador Outreach Program, which is also under HKFYG and which I am also a very proud member of. We will be holding some very useful workshops in the future to help you to prepare for your coming contest as well. Our team members, which are all around the same age as you guys, some of them are actually the past contestant of the contest, and therefore we can share with you some very useful experience and tips on the contest. And most importantly, we are the past contestants and we are around the same age, so we are able to think in your position about what you really need. To officially start now, I would like to introduce Mr. Maximilian Wong, our Supervisor of Leadership 21, the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups, to present us with the welcoming remarks. Mr. Wong, please.
Good morning. Okay. So the Lunar New Year is coming, and I think this is a very special season for we Chinese people to get united with our family, with our friends, and also to be Thanksgiving for such a good year. And I would also like to take this opportunity here to thank for some people to make this contest and also this workshop success. First, I think you just recall a person come to the stage before me, and she's a very cute girl, Ellen. I want you to give a big hand to our MC today. She, together with a group of young people last night, were also here. And I heard, last night because I was here too, and I heard some students in the front ask, oh, are they paid for that? Are they professional for that? And I would just want to tell you, they are just like you. Like all of you here, they are post-90, and they just participated in this contest, but they volunteer here and also in other programs because they love English, and they want to promote English to all of you here, and want more Hong Kong people, especially the students, to love English. So whenever you see the Sir T.L. Yang English Ambassador Outreach, and try to pay attention, put your eyes on the poster and the promotion materials, and see if there's anything interests you. And I would encourage you, of course, to participate in the program as well. So second, I would like to thank for all the volunteers and also the staff here. May I also invite you to join me to give a big hand to them. Yeah, for this year is really, really tough because the contest, the application deadline, and also the workshops as well, are right before the Lunar New Year. And you know, all of us are very busy. Just the days before, and they put a lot of effort to make this contest success. So my heartfelt gratitude to all of them. And finally, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our trainer today, Mr. Yang over there. Once again, big hand to him. You may not recognize, but he just traveled all the way long from Guangzhou to here to Hong Kong. And right after the workshop today and tonight, he will travel back to Guangzhou. And he just come here. All the purpose is for to deliver a good sharing workshop with all of you here, and wanna give you some insights and experience on English public speaking. I'm sure, as all of our trainers previously invited, you will love him. And here finally, I also want to make a good New Year wish to all of you. Wish you all good health and good study In Chinese, we call it 學業進步, right? And of course, you want to have more rep pockets, so 恭喜發財. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Thank you for such encouraging words, and thank you for thanking me too. I hope all of you are motivated and determined to join and towards achieving your best in the coming English public speaking contest, making the most out of this opportunity. Before we move on to the next session, to invite our guest speaker today, Mr. Yang, Kwang Yue Yang, I would give you some brief background information about him. So Mr. Yang is the first ethnic Chinese representative in Toastmaster history who made it into the second place in the World Champion of Public Speaking 2011 with his speech, Fortune Cookies. When asked about his tips in public speaking, he always answers, "Speak from your heart and you can engage your audience right away." He also mentioned the fundamentals of a successful public speech is self-confidence. And confidence comes from countless and rehearsals. Not only will he speak to you on public speaking later on, he's going to share with you some art of communication as well. Now may I please pass the time to Mr. Yang. Let's put our hands together for him onto the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Wow. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's okay. It's Saturday morning. It's a bit early. It's a pleasure for me to be here today because I get to speak to young people. Usually when I speak, I always speak to older people. I always say older, just experienced people. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I think Max talked about last night, many of the speakers up here were post-90s. If I told you I was post-90s, you probably wouldn't believe me. So I hope that even though I look a bit older, you'll still listen and enjoy this speech. I've tried to make myself younger by getting a few pimples on my face, and there's a big one here for the ones that are close by. But it's a pleasure to be here. Now before I start today, I do have 2 rules. Okay? Oh, and you must be thinking, oh, rules? I come here, it's a Saturday, I don't want to have any rules. Monday to Friday, I go home and I see my mum and dad and they give me rules. And I go to school and I got rules from my teachers. But these rules aren't for you, okay? These rules are for myself, for me. So rule number one, I am not your mum or dad, okay? Does that sound exciting? I'm not your mum and dad. I'm not going to give you information and say, you have to listen to me. All right? I'm not going to say that. I'm not old enough to be your dad, and I'm not female enough to be your mum. Now, the good thing about that is everything I tell you today I'm sharing with you. It's called a sharing session. All right? All of you are young enough, you're young adults, and you can make your own decisions of what I tell you. And you can decide what works for you and what doesn't. But I'm not going to be your mum and dad and tell you, you must listen to me. The bad thing about that is, if you come up to me and say, 恭喜發財, you won't get anything from me. Okay? Rule number 2, I am not your teacher. I know some of you are in here because maybe your teachers asked you to come and they think that it is going to be better for you to be here. And I agree with them that what you can learn today is going to help you in life. But I'm not your teacher, so you don't have to pretend to like me. You don't have to give me any apples. If it's an iPhone, I might take it, but no other apples, okay? So I just want to let you know that today is a sharing session and we're going to work off each other and learn from each other. And I hope you enjoy today's session. Now today's session is about communication. How do we communicate better in English so that we can communicate ourselves better? English is very important. Actually, communication is very important. Sometimes communication, if we don't communicate very well, it becomes a pain. For example, when I was younger, my mum would always communicate with me and she'll say, oh son, I went to the hairdresser the other day and I saw Mrs. Chan, and then Mrs. Chan told me about this story about a dog. Oh, and then Mrs. Wong walked into the shop and I said hi to Mrs. Wong. And there I was sitting next to my mum going, Mum, what do you want to tell me? And she said, I just want you to go get a haircut. I'm like, why did you tell me all this other stuff, Mum? And sometimes as we communicate a lot of things that we don't need to learn or talk about. And today's session is about communicating, how we can get our ideas across to each other in a more effective way. Because if we can communicate better, our lives would be so much easier. We wouldn't have to listen to all this boring stuff or things that are irrelevant. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about 3 areas. And let me know if I'm speaking too fast. For some of you who don't know, even though I came from China last night, I'm actually Australian. So I grew up in Australia. I have an Australian accent. It's a bit different from the British and the US. The Australians perfected English, believe it or not. So it's the best sounding accent. Oh, that's just in my opinion. But we're going to talk about 3 areas today. We're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about T. What does T stand for? Topic selection. How many of you are out there thinking, what topic can I choose? What am I going to talk about? The first round of the contest allows you to speak about anything that you want. And so we're going to talk about topic selection. We're then going to talk about speech structure. So how can you structure your speech so that it's more effective? And it's going to engage people a lot easier. Now I see a lot of you are taking out your notebooks and your pens. There will be notes. You can write it down, but also listen. Because what I'm going to say is not always going to be up on the PowerPoint. And then I'm going to talk about delivery. How we can improve our delivery skills. Because speaking in the contest, it's about delivery. It's not just about speaking. It's about how you deliver your message to the audience. Topic selection. Who's ever had an issue with trying to work out what to talk about? Yes, maybe? You're all quiet and nobody's brave enough. Oh yes, we have one gentleman who's put his hand. Oh yeah, I can't find a topic to talk about. Now, one of the beauties or problems with this whole first round is that you can talk about anything. Now the problem about talking about anything is you have a choice. You've got a choice about lots of different things. If you go shopping for clothes, you can buy the same shirt or the same jumper in all these different colors. And then you have to think, does it match your jeans or match your shoes? If you go out and buy a book, what book am I going to buy? If you go buy a mobile phone or a gadget, what mobile phone am I going to get? There are all these different choices. And sometimes you don't know what choice you're going to make, and that's a big issue. If the contest gave you a speech topic, then it would make it unfair. If I gave you a topic about physics or the creation of the universe, and some of you are going, oh, I don't want to write about that. Yeah? Because if we talk about things that you don't like, you're not going to have any interest in trying to talk about it or to research it. And so the reason why they give you an open topic is so that you can talk about something that you enjoy and that you like. Now what I want to emphasize here actually is that the whole contest, it's not just about a contest. And it's not actually just about English speaking either, although English speaking is important. It's actually how do you use English to share your idea? How do you use English to share your idea? It's important that we've got the word English in there, but the more important part is share your idea. We, audience, want to know what you think. If you as an audience, if I came up here and I just talked about, you would all fall asleep. That's not what you want to hear. As an audience, you want to learn from my experience. As a judge, I want to hear what you want to share. What are the things that go through your mind? Because if you just stand there and you just talk about something that I'm not interested in, or you're sharing your idea, then we're not really learning. We're not really improving our lives. So what is it that you want to share with us? What is that idea in your mind? So the audience, what's important for the audience? Is there something that the audience specifically wants to hear? Now, as young adults, a lot of our lives, we're not given that opportunity to give our opinions. All right? We give our opinions to our mum and dad, and sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. And it's not very often that we get to share our ideas. But as you grow older and as you learn more and explore the world, it's going to be very important to have your own ideas and to share them and to be able to share them or know why you want to share them. So what I want to emphasize is this isn't just a contest. I want to teach you skills that you can use in your life. So you can share your opinion with your friends, with your colleagues. Oh, you don't have colleagues now. So with your friends, with your teachers, with your classmates. Because sharing ideas means that we're all going to grow and get enriched from everybody else's ideas. We're all going to learn from everybody else. The other thing is you. What do you want to talk about? As I said, it's an open topic. You can talk about anything that you want. If you just talked about something that you didn't like, you're not going to research it. You're not going to feel excited. If I stood up here and talked about neuroscience, even I'm going to be bored. And even I'm going to fall asleep. So you've got to find things that you're interested in. Now, it could be anything. It's very simple. And we're going to do an exercise for you later on to work out how you can develop an idea that you like and then talk about it in a way that's going to suit the contest. And I hope that's going to be, and that will be interesting for you. So as you can see, you are all young Einsteins. You are all the future. Sitting in this room could be the next Steve Jobs. All right? Sitting in this room could be the Chinese Barack Obama. A few more years and you're going to show your greatness. And this is you right now. And you've got ideas. And we want to help enlighten you and turn on your ideas. So when we find a topic, we look at two things, as I mentioned earlier. Interests. What are you interested in? And what are you passionate about? What do you enjoy? There are lots of things that we can be interested about. And each and every one of us here are interested in different things. So we're going to do a very quick exercise. I'm going to give you a minute. And I'm assuming everybody has a piece of paper. If you don't have a piece of paper, try to get a piece of paper or borrow it from the person next to you. I'll give you a few seconds to grab that. Just a piece of paper. It's going to be a bit more of an interactive sharing. Wonderful. Okay. I hear the rustling papers, everything. People are getting their notebooks out. Great. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute, 1 minute, and I want you to write down 3 things, 3 topics or 3 things that you are interested or passionate about. And I'm going to do it as well. 3 things that you're interested or passionate about. It could be a TV show, it could be a certain sport, it could be something that's been in the news that you're curious about and you want to find out more. So just 1 minute and just write down 3 things. And I'm going to write down 3 things as well. Okay, it shouldn't take too long. If it's taking too long, it means you're thinking too much about what you like. So just find something that you like, something that you enjoy. When you wake up, on your weekend, something that you want to do, something that interests you. Right, 3 things. Okay. I'm assuming, does anybody need more time? Raise your hand if you need a little bit more time. One at the back, okay. You written your 3 things? Okay, wonderful. Okay, now, for example, my 3 things were the iPad, basketball, and girls. Now, unfortunately, I could talk about girls, but it's not really the best topic. I mean, it is a good topic, but not for a speech contest. So, look at your list of 3, and maybe cancel out anything that you think might be inappropriate as a speech contest. So if it's about, just cross that out. Now, so let's look at the iPad and basketball. Now, when you have a topic like that, it's very general, it's very broad. How do I turn an iPad into a topic that will be interesting? So I ask myself the question, why do I like the iPad? I like the iPad because it's fun. There's lots of gadgets. It looks cool. I think I can learn a lot more if I have an iPad. And so I start thinking about why I like the iPad. And then I think about, okay, I could talk about a speech about why I like the iPad. But if I just talked about why I like the iPad, it's still not going to connect with everyone or the audience. It's not really my opinion. I'm just saying the iPad is cool, it makes us smarter, and it's the next gadget we have to have. But it's not really sharing an opinion. If, however, I then said to you all, I think every secondary student in Hong Kong should be given an iPad. I've made a statement. I'm giving my opinion. I think every single one of you in here should be given an iPad by the government. How many of you would agree with me? Yeah, wouldn't it be great? Now, if I then talked and said, if I stood up here and said, I think every secondary student in Hong Kong should get an iPad because it's cool, it's hip, and it's got lots of games. It's not very intellectual. Okay? The listeners will listen, but you might not be able to change their way of thinking. So this is where I then go, all right, I need to do some research. I need to explore my topic a little bit more. How can I convince my mum and dad to buy me an iPad? All right? And what's the most important thing for your mum and dad? To make sure that their child, their son or daughter, is smarter or grows up in the world or has a better chance in life. So I'll go off and I'll do research. And I'll research how the iPad can improve a student's ability. Now, I would go and do some research and I'll go Google or go read some books and I'll find out that, there's this case study where students who use an iPad or schools which use an iPad for their studying purposes, their marks increased by 20%. Yeah? And so I'll take that idea, and that becomes an intellectual idea, an idea that I've researched, and I can present to the judges. I could then choose another thing, and then say, well, okay, an iPad is important because it is technology, and we always have to upgrade ourselves with technology. If we don't upgrade ourselves with technology, we're going to fall behind, and it's important that we upgrade ourselves. And that would become another point. So already, all of a sudden, I've got 2 points. And if I went up to my mum and dad and said, Mum and Dad, I want to get an iPad because if I get an iPad, it's going to help me study and it's going to increase my marks by 20%. It's been proven by a survey that was done in the US. And all of a sudden your mum and dad go, maybe. Yeah? Because I've slightly convinced them with statistics that it will improve my ability. So if I stood up here and said, every secondary student in Hong Kong should get an iPad from the government, and these are the reasons why, and then blah, 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 blah. I've supported my message, my statement. I've shared my idea. So can you see how I've taken a very general idea, iPad, and then made it into something that you can talk about, and hopefully you'll be interested in as well to research. If I took basketball, who watches? I mean, maybe more so the guys. Do you follow the NBA? No. Do you play basketball? Yeah. Or soccer, football? Manchester United fans in here? I'm sure there are a few. So we can then look at sports. How can we talk about sports? What can we talk about in sports? If we talked about football or basketball, we can talk about teamwork. We can talk about a shortened season, if it's the NBA, a shortened season. Football. Any of the guys? I know this gentleman here has a Manchester United, so you must follow soccer, right? No. Oh, you play table tennis. Okay, he plays table tennis and has Manchester United. So in future there will be a Manchester United table tennis contest. But what I'm trying to say, okay, for example, lately, for those who do follow a bit of soccer, if you know Messi, Lionel Messi, his hand got stamped on by another player on purpose. So some person went up to Messi while he was on the ground and went bang on his hand. Now I could talk about that topic as well. I could talk about the fact that sportsmanship is important. Okay? Why is it important to have sportsmanship in sports? Or I could take that idea and say something like, famous people, their actions impact others. Okay? By children seeing, or other adults seeing Messi's hand being stamped on purpose, I could talk about how that has a negative impact on children or on society. And then I could then go do research and talk about how many children watch football, how many people around the world watch football, and how this image could affect their idea of sportsmanship or sports. All right, so let's not just take my ideas. Does anybody have any ideas that they'd like to share? Throw out some ideas that you wrote down. You wrote down 3 ideas. So everybody should have an idea or 2. This gentleman who put his hand up before, what did you write down?
Some TV shows.
TV shows. What TV shows?
Downton Abbey.
Sorry?
Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey. Anybody watch the TV show Downton Abbey?
Very few.
Oh, you're the only person in this room who watches that show.
Well, it is about some noble family in UK, and they have some problem about the family, they need to find heir.
They need to find an heir.
Yeah.
An heir. Okay, so there's this TV show about having to find an heir to the throne, a successor. Okay, and then there are issues with that. So you can relate that with your own life then. Maybe you can talk about the idea that my mum and dad want me to do certain things. Okay, they want me to be this sort of person. And so I do a lot of things because I'm their successor. And then you can talk about personal things like that. Or you could, if you really wanted to, you could talk about the British royal family. And, I mean, it might be a bit of a drier topic, but it's something that you could also consider and talk about, the British royal family, because Hong Kong was part of the British colony. So that's my idea. Does anybody have any other topics that they can throw out to me that we could discuss? This gentleman here, who I made eye contact with before, Give me a topic. It can be table tennis. It can be...
Money.
Money. Oh, money. Everybody wants to know about money. Okay. Now, if I stood up here and I just talked about I need money, then I am making an opinion, I am making a statement, but it's not really changing the audience's point of view. Okay? So as a speaker, you want to make sure the audience gets some value, some positive value out of what you say. That's really important, to have some positive value in what you want to say. So if we talked about money, we can talk about lots of things. We can talk about I won't say global economy, because that's probably a bit too far and a bit too big to talk about. But we can talk about how we earn money or the value of money. The other day I went to McDonald's and I realized their Big Mac meal had increased by $2. Okay? Now if a Big Mac meal increases by $2, that means in a year I'll spend an extra $500 just on my Big Mac meal. Okay? And then I can talk about inflation or the increases of money and how that affects our lives. So what I'm trying to say is that choose a topic that you like and you're interested in, then go off and write down the reasons why you're interested in those things. So let me rephrase that. First step, which you've already done, write down 3 things that you like or you're interested in. Second step, start writing down the reasons why you're interested in that topic or anything that's related to that topic. And that's going to start giving you ideas. The third step, which you can't really do here, is get your mobile phone or something that you can record your voice and speak about that topic for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, at least. The contest is 3 minutes. But if you speak for 5 minutes, you're going to force yourself to think about reasons. And then and the reason why you don't write it down is because if you write it down, you're going to think. You're going to think about what you're writing. But if you're talking about it and saying it, you're just speaking as much as you can. And then you can listen to it later and then write down what you've just written. Notice the difference? If I write it down, I'm going to start thinking and I'm going to control how I think. If I'm speaking, I'm just trying to say as much as I can. And then afterwards, I'll take those notes. And then I'll work out what are the points I can research and find out more information about. Okay? And then from there, we're going to move to the next step. We need some direction and we need a message. So as I was saying, how can we streamline that into something that the audience wants to find out more about? So just by saying, I think every secondary student in Hong Kong should get an iPad, all of a sudden everybody was awake. Like, yeah, I agree, I want an iPad. So you've got to find a message or a topic that is very succinct or straightforward that you can talk about. Okay, we're going to go and move on to speaking structure. There are many ways to deliver a speech. And the thing is, remember, it's only a 3-minute speech. There's so much you can talk about in three minutes. But you've got to cram it all in. So I'm going to give you 5 structures that you can use. And I'm going to call them the 5 Ps. All right, the 5 Ps, because they all start with P. Now you can write these down if you'd like. The first one, oh, you can't really see this, unfortunately. Does anybody watch The Big Bang Theory? Yes, Big Bang Theory. Full of really smart people. Yeah? Now you can't really see that, but a time machine. Has anybody ever wished that they could travel back in time or go into the future? I know I have. Yeah. Go back in time, change all these things. Maybe earn some money by working out who's going to win the horse races. Yeah? So a time machine. When we speak, it's very natural for us to speak in a chronological order. So a timeline. So this first structure is called Past, present, future. You talk about the past, what happened. You talk about now, the present, what's happening now. And then you talk about the future, what is going to change, what you believe is going to happen in future. Past, present, and future. So if I took this idea, we go back to my iPad example. You're all going to get sick of the iPad and all your mum and dads are going to thank me for not having an iPad. Or all of you are going to go home and use my examples on your mum and dad and they're going to buy you an iPad. Right? Past, present, and future. So in the past, how did we learn? We learned by reading books, by giving us textbooks. If you look at students in Hong Kong, I don't know if it happens now, but 10 years ago, primary kid students, they would carry these big bags, and there's like about 10 books in their bags, and they look like little turtles walking to school. I don't know if that's the situation now, but 10 years ago, students in Hong Kong carried many, many books. That's what happened in the past. In the present, we now have technology, and we can have iPads. If each student was given an iPad, they wouldn't need all those books. Think about how much easier life would be for them if they didn't have iPads. Now in the future, technology, we have to embrace technology. Without technology, we're not going to learn. Everything in our day and life involves technology, whether it's the internet. Before we didn't have the internet, today we have the internet, tomorrow we don't know how the internet's going to affect our lives. So this is the past and future. If I wanted to go down the line of the whole educational session, I'll say, in the past we learned through books. Right now we still learn through books, but the future is not learning through books. It's about learning through interaction. It's about learning and being able to interact with images, interact with stories, interacting with the way other people think. The iPad allows us to share ideas with each other. And that's how I would talk using the past, the present, and the future. And that's that very simple structure. Is there any questions about that structure? It's quite straightforward, quite simple. No? Okay. We'll keep moving on. The pros and the cons. Pros and the cons. Another P. So we talk about the good points and the bad points. Do we have any debaters in here? Anybody who do? Yep, one gentleman there. Another one. A whole line of debaters there. Okay. Be careful of that line of friends over there. They'll debate with you. But the pros and cons. So debating is really about the pros and your cons. You have one side which supports an idea, the other side that doesn't support an idea. And this is a very simple structure because you talk about the good things, you talk about the bad things, and you can go from backwards and forwards, or you can just talk about the good things and the bad things, and then at the end, you come up with a conclusion, with your own point of view. Again, this is all talking about how you communicate your point of view. So you talk about the benefits of an iPad, you talk about the negative sides of getting an iPad, and then you come to your overall conclusion. So what might that be? So the benefits of having an iPad, you guys already know. So I'll try to invent some new ideas. The benefits of an iPad is it means I'm cool. And if I'm cool, it means I'm more accepted. The negatives about an iPad is that I might play games too much, and I might not study, or it might get stolen. My parents might say, I don't want to give you an iPad because you won't look after it. It might get stolen. And then you go to your mum and dad, but the benefits of getting an iPad is I'll be more responsible. I'll look after my iPad a lot more. It teaches me to be more responsible. It teaches me not to leave my things lying around. And then your parents will say, yeah, but I don't think that'll happen. And then you say, well, buy me one and I'll show you. Yeah? So that's the whole pros and the cons. That's what we're doing with the pros and the cons. And it's the same thing. Same thing with what I just did. You can practice all these techniques on your parents, okay? Just make sure they don't get angry. And don't tell them I taught you, all right? So we talk about the pros and the cons. What are the benefits? What are the negatives? And we try to address the negatives or strengthen the positives and then come up with our ideas. So that's the second P. Prep. I'm not going to talk about this book. I've never read this book. All right, but it has the word prep, P-R-E-P. And that's the next P. The first P stands for point. You make your point. You make your statement. Anybody else got another idea? Because if I keep talking about iPads, you're going to get bored. Anyone want to give me another idea? I don't own any Apple shares, by the way. So I have no benefits of talking about the iPad. But point. All right. We make our statement. All secondary students in Hong Kong deserve an iPad. We make a point. We then talk about the reason. Why we believe so. So we support our point with the reason. Why we believe in that. Then we talk about the example. We then give an example of what we believe. And then we finish it all off by going back to the point. Point, reason, example. Structure very easy to follow. Again, back to the whole iPad. Every student in Hong Kong deserves an iPad. The reason is because it will engage our students more and it will increase their ability at school. There was a study done in the US where a high school introduced iPads to all their students and their marks went up by 20%. Point. That's why I believe all students should get an iPad. So see how I've just used that? Point, reason, example, point. A very simple structure to follow. Point, example, reason, point. Now with all these examples I'm giving you, try to learn the different usages of them, because in the contest there are a couple of rounds. So the first round you can talk about anything you want. Okay? And then the second round, I think the semi-finals, they give you a topic and then you have a short period of time to prepare before you stand up in front of the audience. So if you have these structures, it's going to help you to design your speech very quickly. Point, reason, example, point. So who remembers the very first P? Past, present, future. The second P? Pros and cons. And now we have point, prep. Point, reason, example, point. Easy to remember. This one. The problem. What do you think is on the other side of a problem? A solution. Has anybody ever felt that way? Yeah. So the problem, somebody's talking too much. The solution, put on some headphones. Problem solution is very simple to use as well. In many areas, we first talk about what the problem is, and then we offer a solution, and how that solution is going to benefit us or society. So there are many topics that we can talk about. I heard I found out from some friends, some of the topics in Hong Kong at the moment. They've changed the testing system, is that correct? For Form 5 or Form 6? Yeah? And that could be a problem. So what is the solution you could offer them? Okay, the problem is that they've changed the testing system and we don't know what the benchmarks are. And then you can offer your solution. And your solution just doesn't have to be the way you think. You can find out what the media says about those solutions, and you can talk about those as well. Another problem, recently I heard in Hong Kong there was a D&G about photo taking. Yeah, there's this big fiasco about photo taking, and then the security guard saying, "You're not a tourist. You can't take photos." Okay? So how can we avoid this sort of issue in future? And then you can offer a solution. So if you talk about the problem, that's the problem, and then offer a solution, the judges are going to really enjoy that, especially if it's something really recent. Okay? It means that you're aware of what's happening around you, what's happening in the news. And at the very first level, it's not going to matter so much. You can talk about anything. But towards the end, in the semi-finals and the finals, the topics might be more difficult. It might be more topical. So pay attention to what's in the news. Pay attention to what's happening around you. This is just a side note for you all. If you can pay attention and just about what's happening in the news, I'm not saying watch the news every night. I remember what it's like to be 14, 15, 16. Watching the news was boring. All right? So you don't have to watch it every single night, but just have an idea of what's happening. Problem, solution. That's another P that you can use. You might have heard before, and that's personal story. Tell a personal story. In a lot of public speakers or motivational speakers, they tell a personal story about what they did or how they did things or their own experience. And by talking about a personal experience, you guys can hopefully relate. Now for me, my personal story is I come to Hong Kong and I see all these people playing with their iPad or their iPhone. And I've got this little phone which I hide away because I feel uncool if I show everyone. And I can talk about that. Talk about the idea of having to belong. In my fortune cookie speech, which I did in the US, I talked about what it was like to be a Chinese growing up in Australia. And then that sort of cultural identity issue that I have. I don't know what's right. Am I Chinese? Am I Australian? And my dilemma of never knowing how to choose or knowing what was right. And I talked about a personal story. So you can use a personal story to address your contest. It might even be an experience. It could be that one day you were lining up to buy something and somebody jumped in line and pushed you out of the way. Yeah? And then you can then go and talk about why it's important to be courteous to each other, why you should respect each other. So you can think about what's happened in your life recently, and you can talk about it, and talk about that personal experience, and see how that improves your life. So you tell the story, and you make a point. As an audience, you'll remember the stories more than you remember the point. If I said something like, Messi got his hand stamped on by another football player, and you go, oh yeah, I've seen that on TV. And then if you said, the other day I went to soccer and I saw another boy, 12 years old, stamp on another boy's hand. That then becomes that personal story. And you go, oh, I thought it just happened on TV. It also happens in Hong Kong. And that's how that image has affected our society. And then you go on and you talk about the bad images that you see in society. So that's how you connect a personal story. Okay? I don't want you to go out and say, oh, I went shopping the other day, and when I went shopping I didn't know what clothes to choose. Should I choose a blue skirt or a black skirt? That is the personal story, but it's not very interesting. So make sure you take that personal story and find a way to connect it to something more interesting and a little bit more topical. So they were the 5 Ps. The first one was past, present, future. Then we have pros and cons. Blah, 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 blah. Yep. Point, reason, example, point. We then have problems. They're the 5 structures that you can use. Okay? You can keep those in your mind, and when you present, it's going to make your speech much more structured. You only have 3 minutes, so something simple is always going to be easier to talk about. The stopwatch. I remember sometimes we have problems where we don't know how long we can speak for, what's the timing. Sometimes we get very nervous and we speak as fast as we can, and we can say as fast as we can and get it out of the way so we don't have to talk about it anymore. I just spoke as fast as I could, and half of you probably were like, what? What did you just say? You know, we don't want to be machine guns, all right? We're not machine guns that go, and we're not just firing words as fast as we can. This is about communication, how we can communicate with each other. So how can we avoid that problem? We work out our speaking speed. What is your speaking speed? Your speaking speed is very different from your reading speed as well. So your speaking speed is how many words you can speak in a minute. For most people, speaking speed is about 120 to 130 words per minute. For teenagers, sometimes it might be faster because you like to speak very quickly. Sometimes you have friends who just go blah, 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 blah. So each person has a different speaking speed. Now the best way to work out your speaking speed is to get a book, all right, get a book, get a stopwatch, and just read the page and then time yourself. Read the page and then time yourself. And then you can divide the number of words by the minutes, the seconds. Very quick maths question. Now what you do need to be careful of, your reading speed, you've got to speak out loud. You can't just read it and time it. You can't do that. Because you read a lot faster than you speak. Even when you speak from reading off a book or a newspaper, you're going to speak faster than you usually speak. So get your book or your newspaper or whatever it is, and just try to read it and speak it as if you were speaking to somebody else. And then that's how you're going to work out your speaking speed. So if you know your speaking speed is 120 words per minute, it means in a 3-minute speech, you're going to speak for 300, you're going to have 360 words. Okay. Phew. For a second there, I forgot my maths. So you have 360 words in your little speech. And that's how you can start writing. You can start typing it out on your computer. And the beauty is that now with Word, with computers, it tells you how many words you have already. If you're writing and you've got 500 words, then you're not going to be able to complete your speech in 3 minutes. If you've only got 200 words, then you're going to have to speak very slow. And people are going to fall asleep. So that is your speaking speed. Try to work out what your speaking speed is, and that's something that you can practice, and it will help you when you're developing what you want to write and for the contest. The skeleton. The skeleton. A lot of students, what they tend to do is they try to memorize what they want to speak about. They try to memorize word for word. Every single word. And then they also have cue cards. And they stand there and they try to read off their cue cards. What I'd like to challenge you to do is that communication, as I mentioned, it's all about getting your point across, your opinion. Okay? And with those simple structures that you have, you should be able to remember the main points. All you really need to do is remember the main points. If you forget your lines, if you remember the main points, which is your skeleton, It doesn't matter if you forget your words. A lot of people are scared of forgetting their words and, oh, I forgot my words, what am I going to say next? But if you remember the point that you're trying to get across, that you're trying to get across to the audience, then you'll just say, okay, I forgot the words, but I'll just make sure they understand my point. And then you just keep talking. It might not be as concise, it might not be as poetic, but that's how you get over that idea. So you can write your words down, you memorize it where you can, but remember the main points. So that if you forget your main points, if you forget your words, you still have your main points. The other thing with the skeleton is, for example, now I've forgotten some of the words I want to say. But I remember the main point that I want to say is that you should have a skeleton. You should say opening, okay, and this is point 1, point 2, point 3, or this is my reason, my example, and my point. And if you remember that skeleton, it's just going to make life so much easier. I'm going to give you a tip. When you rehearse your speech, a lot of people will try to memorize their speech, which is fine. When you try to rehearse, when you think you've rehearsed it well enough and you remember the words, try practice in a situation where there are lots of distractions. Because when there are distractions, it's going to make you forget your words. So go when your mum's cooking or something, or you're in the playground and the kid's kicking the ball. There are lots of distractions. If you can practice your speech when there are lots of distractions, it'll help you A, focus, or B, if you forget what you want to say, it'll help you quickly remember, okay, what's the main point I want to talk about, and then get back on track. So what you can do is go back in a very disruptive environment. And that's a skill that you'll practice and you'll learn. Sometimes when I speak, I'll see people playing with their mobile phones. I'll see people falling asleep. Okay, they're distractions. And I've got to make sure I can get over those distractions and just keep going and making my point. That's one thing that you can do to practice. The other thing is, anybody who is a singer or anybody do drama or play music, yes, drama or people who play music, you realize that when you make a mistake, you just have to keep going. Okay? As a performer, I can't say, oh, I forgot my line. Can we go back? And can I redo it? You can't do that in front of the audience, okay? If you're playing the piano and you play the wrong note, you don't play dun 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 and just try to find that note before you keep playing. You don't do that. You just, oh, I played the wrong note, I'll just keep on playing. And that's what we have to do as speakers. When you try to communicate, if you forget your words, you forget what you want to say, just keep going. Don't worry. And that's what you have to practice as well when you rehearse. If you forget your words, just keep going. It's fine. We won't notice it. The listeners won't notice it. Unless you stand there and go, then they will notice it. So just keep going and try to forget about what's happened. Now we're going to talk about the delivery skills. What are some of the delivery skills that we do? Now, I watched some of the videos online last year, and I don't know if you're going to be competing in this room, but you basically stand in front of a microphone, and I don't know if there's an audience, but I'm assuming there's an audience. Now, by me standing up here with a microphone in front of me, it makes me feel like I'm on American Idol, yeah, or America's Got Talent, or one of those shows, and it's quite nerve-wracking. Now, as we know, with all singers and all performers, we get nervous. So how do we hide those nerves? Or how do we perform in the best way? So we're going to talk about the delivery skills and what to think about. Anybody still watch The Simpsons? Yeah? Okay, few. All right. I'm still young. I still watch The Simpsons. You guys still watch The Simpsons as well. First thing we're going to talk about is body language. All right? What is it about body language? Now, for 1 minute, talk to the person next to you. We're going to do this in pairs. We're going to do this in pairs. Okay, now, have you found your partner? Should be right next to you. And for a minute, I want one person to talk about something that they hate, something that they don't like, and talk about it for a minute. Okay? So we'll give you a minute, starting from now. Work out between your pair who's going to talk, and then talk about something that you hate. All right? Start now. Okay, just finish off with what you want to say. Finish off with what you want to say. So I hope you talked about something that you disliked. Now, I'm going to give you another minute, but now it's time for the other person to talk about it. Okay, now the other person, I want you to talk about someone you know. Someone you know and why you hate that person. Okay, someone you know and why you hate that person. All right, I'll give you another minute. And then the question and answers?
Hang on 1 second, sorry. You have until 12:30.
Okay, and then question and answers?
Yeah, or you can move it forward if you want.
Okay. Okay, so let's wrap that up. So we'll bring it back. Bring it back to the front. It's always really exciting. The second time when I tell people to talk about things people that they hate, they just keep talking. And it's hard to get people to get back. Now, the purpose of that exercise, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I could notice from up here. When you were talking about things that you disliked or that people that you hated, body language naturally came out. Body language naturally came out. I saw people going like this. I saw people, like this. I saw people, there's something about the face. All right? So what I'm trying to say is that body language is natural. When we speak to each other, your body language comes out. Next time when you're with your friends, talk with your friends, see how they use their body language. It's very natural. So body language doesn't have to be very structured. I noticed one girl, and when she was talking about the person that she hated, it wasn't just in her hands, it was in her face, and her head was shaking. I don't like this person. Okay? So when you talk about your topic, you've got to learn how to be natural. Your hands will move naturally. Your face will change naturally. Your head will move naturally. But that will only happen if you're talking about something that you're interested in or something that you're passionate about. And that's why I suggest you talk about something that you're interested in or passionate about, because you'll naturally feel more energetic to talk about it. The only issue is when we stand in front of people, we get very nervous. Mm-hmm. So the suggestion would be, try recording yourself. Get a video recorder, get a digital camera, get your mobile phone, and record yourself as you speak when no one's there. Speak to the camera. It's going to seem a bit strange, but your body language will naturally come out. Mm-hmm. And then if you practice in front of an audience, try to record yourself again and see how you close up. As I was mentioning, it's very natural. You don't have to design. Some people like to design their body movement and make it really big and it looks a bit too fake. Just try to be natural. So the other tip is make sure you video record yourself. Okay? One of the best things about recording yourself is when you go back and you watch it, you see the things that you don't like. You see the things that you think look unnatural. And then you change that. I'm not going to tell you, oh, this looks wrong, or you look strange, or your stand's funny. I'm not going to tell you that. You'll be able to see it yourself when you look at your own video. So your best person to analyze yourself is yourself. Mm-hmm. So try to record yourself. And that's what I suggest with body language. Be natural. Learn how to use your hands. Learn how to use those gestures so that you can do things differently. Mm-hmm. Body language. The other thing is the mic's in one place, so you're not going to be moving backwards and forwards all over the stage like I am. You just stand in one space, you have 3 minutes, and then you talk about it. Vocal variety. Has anybody watched The King's Speech? Yeah? It's quite an interesting movie, and there is a lot of vocal variety where he's trying to do a lot of different things with his voice. So the next exercise, the other exercise that I suggest you can do when you go home, is when you practice, I just talked about recording it via video, recording it just vocally. Just vocally. Because when you just record it vocally and you listen to it, you listen to your voice and you only see your voice. There are some people when they speak, and when they speak, they always go down at the end of the words. At the last word at the end of their sentence, they always like to go down. And then there are other people, when they speak, they always like to end up on a high. And I don't know why, but they speak normally, and then when they want to make their point, when they finish, they end on a high. Yeah? I think everybody in this room deserves an iPad. Because iPads are important to the way we study. And if we all get an iPad, we're all going to become 20% smarter. And you laugh now. And it happens. You're not going to notice that unless you record yourself. Mm-hmm. So try to record yourself and try to listen to all the different things, the little differences. The other thing is sometimes we speak too fast, or we don't know where to add a pause. Some of you know the importance of a pause. The pause is something that you add at the end of your statement or your sentence to add more impact, to add more power. Mm-hmm. So I think that every student in Hong Kong should get an iPad. Because if we get an iPad, every student in Hong Kong is going to become smarter. And that can only be a good thing for Hong Kong. And then I pause. And then the audience thinks, he's got a point. Yeah? The other way is you add a pause just before a word. If you add a pause just before the word, it emphasizes that thing. It really stands out. It really stands out. So try to practice and see how professional speakers add a pause. You don't have to watch on YouTube. You can go watch humor. You can go watch stand-up comedians. Or even on TV, when you watch comedy shows on TV, like The Big Bang Theory, you can notice how they pause before a punchline. Before they tell a joke, there's often a very slight pause of what they're going to say. Or after they've said it, they pause a little and everybody starts laughing. Ha 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 ha. So we'll try to work out how the pause helps in your vocal variety as well. So vocal variety, as I mentioned, includes your tonage, the way you speak in your tones. It includes how quickly you speak, and how fast you speak, and how slowly you can speak. So try to practice a vocal variety. If you find it hard to talk and practice your vocal variety, does anybody have a younger brother or sister? Yeah, if you've got younger brothers or sisters, or if you know children, speak to them. Tell them a story. Have you ever noticed when adults speak to babies, they're like, "Oh, you're so cute today." Yeah? "Oh, look at those cheeks." And it happens, like adults do it. And that's vocal variety. So you can talk to a younger child and tell them a story. You don't have to speak to them, "Oh, you look so cute." But maybe you can tell them a story about Little Red Riding Hood or the tortoise and the hare. And see how your vocal variety changes. It does change, and it naturally does change. So that's a good way to practice. Try to tell a story to somebody else. And then when you speak formally, it's going to change as well. But you need to first get out of that range, get out of that "I'm scared" sort of situation. And that's how you can practice. Oh, I heard some people, oh. Eye contact. Yeah, so eye contact. How do we practice eye contact? Standing up on stage, I will not look at one person and let's just speak to them and tell them my point of view, okay? They'll get scared. But at the same time, I'm not going to stand here and just talk to you like this and talk like this the whole session. Eye contact is important to engage people. And some of the best ways, some of the tips for using eye contact is you look at people and you just look at them for a few seconds and they'll look back at you. And you can tell when they've sort of got an idea. You don't stare at them, because if you stare at them, they'll just go and turn away. Okay? So it's easier for me to give the people at the front some eye contact. It's a bit harder for the people at the back, especially because there's something shining in my eyes. But eye contact is about engagement. And the truth is, nobody out there looks that scary. Some people get scared. Oh, if I look into somebody's eyes, it's a scary thing. But you've got to remember, all these people in here, I'm assuming none of you, I assume, hate me. Okay? None of you know me, so hopefully you don't hate me. The only thing that you could hate me for is maybe making you come out on a Saturday. But it's all about engagement. So eye contact is very simple. You don't get scared of the people. You look at the people for a few seconds, and then you go on to the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And it becomes very, very natural after a while. A technique which I use to overcome my eye contact, because I used to just look in one place, or I just used to look in one area and then forget the other area. So something that you can do is, I'll call it the Angry Birds technique. The Angry Birds technique. I've got all these angry birds, and I put them in my room. And I put them in different places. Okay? And so when I practice, I look at the different angry birds as I speak. Okay? It sounds stupid. And it looks stupid. Yeah? But it does help. So as you're practicing, once you're practicing, you practice looking at different soft toys or different objects. And even though they don't really have eyes, you just try to practice looking at those eyes, and it does help. It does help. It helps you remember, okay, I'm talking to this bird for a few seconds, and then I'm changing over this side to talk to this other angry bird. So if anybody who finds it hard making eye contact or trying to vary their eye contact, practice at home and get a couple of soft toys and just throw them in your room. Okay, soft toys won't say anything. They won't fall asleep. They're just going to look at you. And that's the beauty of the Angry Birds technique. So eye contact is something that you can try very simply. So we just quickly looked at a few delivery techniques. We looked at body language. I gave you a tip that you should video record yourself. We talked about vocal variety, and I mentioned how you should listen to your voice, and I talked about eye contact as well. So eye contact. Now, last thing that I really want to talk to you about is mentally. Mentally, how do you prepare yourself for a contest? Okay? When you have the word contest, it naturally means that there's a winner and there's everybody else. Okay? I entered a contest and I came second. Now, after entering in that contest and coming second, was I unhappy that I didn't come first? I was a little bit disappointed. But then, after a while, I realized that the value isn't about what place you get. It's just about the whole process. As I mentioned earlier, this contest isn't about just speaking English. And it's not just about winning. It's about how we, as the younger generation, can communicate our ideas in English. If you keep that in mind, it's going to make your life a lot easier. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Being able to communicate is just going to open your lives. You guys are young, you're happening, you've got the future ahead of you. I found that I grew up speaking English, but for me I had to learn Chinese. I had to learn Cantonese, I had to learn Mandarin. And when I was younger, my mum and dad used to take me to Chinese school or Chinese classes. Every Sunday morning, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I had to sit in class and learn Chinese. And I absolutely hated it. I really hated it. Yeah? When I got into high school, I said to my mum and dad, "Mum and Dad, I got to learn Japanese at high school, so I can't learn Chinese. It'll confuse me." And they believed me. Yeah? But I really hated it. And then as I grew older, I realized maybe I should learn some Chinese. It's my background. It's who I am. I am Chinese by nature. And when I decided to take that journey, I learned Chinese, and I actually went to China. And when I went to China, I met all these other people learning Chinese. And all of a sudden, I met people from Korea, from Japan, from the UK. I met people from around the world. And by learning Chinese, it opened up my world to learning a lot more, to meeting new friends, to understanding my own culture. It gave me opportunities. It allowed me to travel. So what I'm trying to say is, for those of you here who are speaking English or who are learning English, don't think of it as a subject. If you think of it as a subject, it's going to be boring. Think of it as an opportunity to make your life more fulfilling. By being able to speak English more proficiently, by being able to speak English better, you're going to make more friends. You're going to be able to make friends from all around the world, and that's exciting. It's going to allow you to go traveling, and traveling is really exciting as well. Okay? And so what we're learning here is how to communicate with English so that we can share our ideas with our friends. We can go and travel overseas, and we can maybe find a better job to earn more money. Okay? That's why we're here to learn English. So when you stand up here on stage, you've got to remember, it's not just a contest. It's about how we can improve ourselves and become better and enjoy life more. And life is meant to be enjoyable. When you stand up here as a contestant speaker, you've got to realize that everybody in the audience and the judges, they don't want to see you fail. Nobody wants to see you fail. When I stand up here on stage, yes, I'm nervous. But I say to myself, none of you guys out there want to see me fail. You just want to learn something from my sharing. And that relaxes me. So when you're standing up here in the contest, I want to say, if you get nervous, just remember, why am I nervous? They don't want to see me fail. They just want to hear my point of view. I shouldn't be nervous. I just want to give them my idea. Yeah? I just want to give them my idea. And there's no right or wrong. When I came second, you also realize that it's very subjective. Judges like different things. So I came second place. The person who came first place was an older gentleman. He was like 60 years old. And he had a very different speaking style from what I was speaking. He was a bit like a granddad, very knowledgeable, very charming. Whereas I was much younger, a bit more energy, using my body a bit too much. And it's just different styles. So when you come up here and you speak in front of the stage, if you don't come first, it doesn't mean that you're not good. It just could mean that you have a different idea, a different style, or you communicate your message differently. So don't get too worked up about what you come. It's important to aim to improve yourself, but if you don't come first, don't worry about it. And that actually gets rid of a lot of your nerves. Okay? It's not about it's about the audience, and they don't want to see you fail. So that's one way you can relax yourself. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, if you forget your words, don't worry. Just keep going. Just keep saying what you want to say. Practice the way I just told you how to practice. Try to get rid of those distractions. And then you're not going to get worried either. And that's how you can make sure that you stay happy and you enjoy this whole process. You're going to look back at this and you're going to look at this contest and go, wow, I can't believe I entered this contest. But there's no reason why you should get sad or upset. It should be a lot of fun. And just remember that the whole contest is a lot of fun. So today I've shared with you 3, possibly 4 things. The first thing we talked about is finding your message. Finding out what you can talk about. And I said, talk about something that you enjoy, that you're interested in. We then went through and did some very simple exercises, which you can do at home. You can do it on the bus. You can do it amongst your friends. Or you could just forget about it. That's okay as well. Because after today, you'll probably go off with your friends and go have lunch and enjoy the rest of the day. That's fine. Then we talked about the structure. What structure we're going to use. I gave you the 5 Ps. Yeah, the 5 Ps. These 5 Ps you can use to prepare your first contest. If you make it to the semi-final, you can use it for your semi-finals. And if you make it to the finals, you can use it for your finals as well. If you don't use it for your finals, you can use it in life, when you go to university or when you get a job. And if you don't want to use it there, you can use it with your parents. Okay? When you want to try getting an iPad, try the different ways, the different 5 Ps. And we talked about body language. Body language should be natural. It should be natural. You all speak naturally with body language, so video record yourself. Vocal variety, record yourself. Try to listen to how you speak and what the differences are. And then eye contact. Try to practice your eye contact either with your Angry Birds or, even better, if you can organize with your teacher, practice in front of a mini audience. It will be nerve-wracking, but the more you practice, the more natural it will be. Okay? Stage, and you remember, and you feel like you're on American Idol or America's Got Talent, just do your best. Just enjoy yourself. A lot of the people who make it to the next round on America's Got Talent or American Idol, they sing with a lot of passion. And they just do what they can do to their best of their ability. And that's the same in this contest. Just enjoy yourself and do what you can, and enjoy yourself, do what you can to the best of your ability. And that's my sharing for today. Do you guys use Twitter? Facebook? Yeah? I don't use Facebook, sorry. I want to, but in China it's banned. Some of you can research that. Actually, some of you can even talk about Facebook and how social Facebook impacts your life or impacts junior people. Anyway, here is my phone number. Oh, I can give you my phone number because I live in China. So many of you won't call me anyway. But if you want to give me a call and ask me a question, feel free to. I don't know how many people here use Weibo. Yeah, Weibo is like the Chinese Twitter. So if you'd like to add me on Weibo, you can do that. I won't give you my Facebook because I don't use Facebook enough. And I won't give you my email either, just in case your parents find it and say, why did you convince my child to get an iPad? So those are my contact details. Now we're going to move into questions. Questions and answers. So I'd like to see, does anybody have any questions? Anybody? Parents, teachers, students? Anybody interested in finding out more? You can ask me about what it's like to live in Australia. How can I get an Australian accent? Where's the best place for lunch? What do you want to wear for the contest? Anything, any simple questions. Oh, there's a gentleman here, a young man here.
Huang, I also ask about your feel about differences between English debating and English public speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. English debating and English public speaking. English debating is definitely, from what I remember, when I did a little bit of debating in high school, but I never did it to a very high level. But English debating is definitely trying to make a point and then looking at the different reasons and analyzing those reasons. And in debating, usually have 3 speakers on each team. Is that correct? And so you can only talk about something very short for a very short point of time. The other thing with debating, it is sometimes a very reactional thing. So you have to react to what the opposite side says. With public speaking, though, public speaking, to an extent, can be a little easier because you have time to prepare what you want to say. You still have to do some research, so you still have to support your points. You still have to support your points. But when you talk about what you want to talk about, you don't always have to talk about the negatives. You can just talk about the positives and make your point within those 3 minutes. The other thing with public speaking is also about the audience. It's about sharing. Public speaking is quite large. I can be an inspirational speaker, and that's public speaking. A debater might not be an inspirational speaker. So I could stand up here and hopefully I can inspire you all to learn English. Okay? I don't want you to learn English because it's a subject. I want you to learn English because it's part of you. It's something that will enrich your life. And I want to open that door of opportunity so I can become very more of an inspirational speaker. Public speaking can also be used in business. Now, when you get to university, and it might even happen now, sometimes you have teachers and you listen and you want to fall asleep, okay, because they speak in the same tone of voice or they're talking about different things. So how do you engage people? How do you connect with people? Public speaking is actually reacting to the audience's attention. So when you guys laugh, how do I make you guys laugh? In public speaking, in debating, you don't really concentrate on humor. But in public speaking, I've got to engage you for an hour. How do I make you laugh? How do I talk about something that you're interested in so that you'll keep listening to me? Does that help answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, gentleman, young man there.
Good evening, Mr. Kos. I think that many people said that we must attract the people in first 30 seconds in the English speaking. How we should do it in English speaking? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, that's something I should have talked about in the structure, the opening and the conclusion. In life, the first 30 seconds count. First 3 seconds, first impressions count. So there are different ways you can do an opening for a speech. Sometimes you can ask a question. And when you ask a question, it makes the audience think. So if I said to you, would you like to find a way to increase your marks at school? All of a sudden, a lot of people go, yeah, I would like to find out more. Okay, because I've asked a question. Okay? That's how you can engage. So the first one is to ask a question. The other way is you can make a very powerful statement. When you make a very powerful statement, everybody knows what you're going to talk about. And please remember, it's only a 3-minute contest. So you only have that 30 seconds. You don't want to make your opening too long. You don't want to sing a song. You can sing a song, maybe one line. That would be very interesting. That would be creative. You've got to learn how to be creative. So ask a question, make a very powerful statement. That's another way of doing it. Or you could even just start off with a story that is interesting. So the personal story. So I could say, the other day, I read an article about how iPads were impacting our lives. Today I'd like to talk to you about how the iPad has affected my life and get that engagement straight away. Or you could talk about Facebook and you can tell a personal story about Facebook or an interesting story about Facebook. You could say, the other day I went on Facebook and I saw my best friend who was 13 years old and he changed his status from single to married. Something like that. And then you can start talking about how ridiculous Facebook can be sometimes. So make a comment or a statement that is going to grab their attention. It could be funny, it could be shocking, or it could just be a question to make people think. So that's how you do an opening for your speech. The other thing that I didn't talk about is the conclusion. In a 3-minute speech, you've got to make sure you conclude and summarize your points. If you talk about pros and cons, problem and solution, past, present, future, at the end you have to summarize your main points. So at the end of the day, I believe that everybody should get an iPad because blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Okay, so make sure you summarize what you said. Don't just say blah, 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 thank you. You need to have that you need to summarize all your points at the end, and that's what you have to do with your conclusion. So thank you very much for that question. Any other questions? Yes, lovely lady down here. Play pass the parcel. Pass the microphone.
So good afternoon, Mr. Kwon. So do you think a speech without any grammar, so many difficult vocabularies will make a speech to become more successful in a speaking contest?
Grammatical mistakes, you definitely have to try remove. Okay? Grammatical mistakes, if you use the wrong grammar, it actually makes it harder for us to understand what you're trying to say. So if you can write your speech out, and then you can actually show it to your teacher, or show it to your parents, or maybe your parents' friends, and just try to, iron out the grammatical mistakes. Okay, so definitely you don't want to speak with the wrong grammar. But at the same time, if you're in the speech contest and you forget your words, as long as you get your point across, that's okay, that's fine. Using complex words. My suggestion is not to use them. Okay? Sometimes we use complex words that either don't make any sense, or we focus so much on that complex word that we get nervous and we forget about it. If you notice in my speech, I don't use any complex words. Even when I speak to adults, I don't use complex words. Because if I use complex words, it's unnatural for me and it seems very, very strange. Okay? And complex words, it's good for a book, but not good for when you speak with people. Yeah, especially when some people might not understand the complex words. You can throw in one or two if you like, if that's the only word you can use, but you can avoid them. Yeah, that's my suggestion. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which I didn't talk about in the vocal variety part, is your ums and your ahs. Your ums and your ahs. So as younger generation, young adults, sometimes we and we ah, or we use the word you know. I don't know if anybody uses the word you know. I saw this interview. It was an interview. It was either with Lindsay Lohan or one of those pop stars. And she was on TV, and they asked her a question. And she said, oh, you know, the other day, I was, thinking, what should I do, And, I didn't know what to say. So, you know what I did? Oh, yeah, you know. And that whole statement made no sense. I don't know what you just said. So sometimes we have to avoid words which will detract from our ums and the ahs. So sometimes when we're nervous, we'll keep speaking and we'll try to work out what I was trying to say. Now notice when I said that, it just broke up that sentence. So imagine you're like driving in a car, and your ums and your ahs are the traffic lights, or the speed bumps. So each time you go over a speed bump or a traffic light, you have to slow down. So what we want to avoid as speakers is try to avoid the ums and the ahs. And you'll pick that out when you video record yourself. So there's one way to avoid the ums and the ahs are just to slow down or to just pause. So if you feel like you're going to just say, and take a deep breath. Or just pause. And it takes a little bit of practice. But once you feel like an or an ah coming up, you just pause for that moment, and then keep going. It's actually better to be silent than to and ah your whole way through that sentence. Okay. Notice how I almost wanted to then, but I controlled myself. So that's another way to control the way you speak. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Gentleman at the back.
I'd like to ask you one question. So, have you ever encountered a sudden stage fright? And if you have, then how did you overcome it? Thanks.
Stage fright. Yes, I've encountered stage fright. Even before I come on stage, you know, your heart, oh, I just said you know. When I came on stage, my heart was pounding, and I was getting sweaty, and you get, I said it again, you know. So all of you, you're going to start counting all my you knows. I got very nervous, and I was getting shaky, and it does happen naturally. My only suggestion is that you have to try to practice as much as you can in front of a mini audience or a bigger audience. If you can organize with your teacher or with your friends and just practice in front of people, that's the first step to overcome it. The second step is that if you do feel nervous, don't worry. Just visualize before you come on stage and say, all right, I'm going to have a great time. I'm just going to come out here and I'm just going to make my point. You have to ask yourself, why am I getting nervous? I'm getting nervous because I'm afraid I'll forget what I want to say. I'm afraid people will laugh at me. I'm afraid my hair's messy. That's the reason why we get nervous. That's the reason why we get stage fright. So you need to answer those questions in your mind. So I say to myself, okay, I know what point I want to make. If I forget my words, as long as I make my point, it's okay. And I remember to myself, all right, everybody in the audience, the judges, they don't want to see me fail. They just want to listen to my points of view. I just want to hear your points of view. And then that will overcome that nervousness as well. And sometimes it really helps to visualize yourself, visualize and feel positive before you come on stage. And the best way to do it is just to practice as much as you can in front of a mini audience. And that will hopefully help you overcome your nerves. And I hope that helps you. Any other questions? Up.
In my English school, the English public speaking, some people will make silly face and make you laugh. So is it you don't look at them?
So the question was, and let me just make sure I get it right. When you stand up here on stage, there are people in the audience making funny faces to make you laugh, right? Okay. I'll be honest, I haven't experienced that in a long time. There are two ways. Again, maybe you can practice. So, as I mentioned, you practice in an environment where there are lots of distractions. And when you can handle those distractions, you learn to, when you have the distractions around you, you learn to focus. You learn to focus on what you want to say. The other thing is, you focus on the people who aren't making funny faces. Usually, you'll quickly see a funny face, so just don't look in that direction anymore. Look in this other side. Okay? And if somebody makes a funny face, all right, look at the other side. Usually, the people who make funny faces, you know who they are. Yeah, I'm assuming this only happens in class. Yeah, so you know which students are going to make those funny faces. So before you come on stage, you go, I know Mr. Funny Face is sitting over there. So when I speak, I will not look at Mr. Funny Face. I will look at everybody else but Mr. Funny Face. Okay? And that's how you can avoid that. Usually Mr. with Mrs. Funny Face and other Mr. Funny Faces. Yeah? They will sit together. It's very rarely that they will sit throughout. So the first tip is know where they're sitting and avoid them. The second tip is try to practice with lots of distractions anyway. And if you're really scared of it, then just tell your teacher and say, I want to practice in front of students and I want them to make funny faces at me. I want every single person in this room to make a funny face and I've got to concentrate and try to deliver what I want to say. And if you can get through that, you're not going to feel nervous at all. Okay? So just try that and I hope that helps you as well. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes, this gentleman here.
Hello. Would you be so kind to deliver your speech on the fortune cookies now? Because we can learn your tone, we can learn your structure, we can learn, maybe you will quote something from T.S. Eliot or something. Because you've mentioned structure, delivery, take English as an opportunity rather than a subject, something like that. But we will be so we will appreciate if you deliver your speech now. Not fortune cookies, maybe on football, or iPad, anything you want, please. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. The first thing is, I think. Thank you for that question. I think. I don't have Mr. Funny Face in my audience. I have Mr. Challenging. Now, first of all, you can watch my fortune cookie speech on YouTube. Okay? Now, the reason why I want you to watch it on YouTube is because first place, second place, and third place are all on YouTube. I want to get more people to watch my video than the person who came first. Okay? So go back and search my name on YouTube and you can watch that speech. I actually haven't delivered that speech since August last year. I could deliver it right now, but there is a chance I will forget certain words or certain things. And that was in the moment. Sometimes the energy is in the moment. So go watch it on YouTube. Watch it a couple of times. Put it on Facebook. Like it. Yeah. Add all your friends. And we'll see if we can beat number one. But I'm just trying to think of a speech that I can do in a very quick succession. Because throughout my presentation, I've actually been using the stage, using my voice, using my hands. And maybe you haven't been watching it. I'm trying to think of a funnier speech, because the speech that I was going to give would be a bit too emotional and you might cry. So let me just have an idea. Give me a second and I promise I will do something before I get off this stage, okay? I need a second to think about what's the best speech to talk about. Okay, any other questions? And then somebody puts their hand up and says, can you do a speech for us? Okay. You really put me on the spot. Any other questions, seriously, before I try to perform something very simple? Yes, that gentleman there.
I want to about gesture.
Gesture, yes.
Yes. Sometimes if you use too much of them, it's quite annoying. But sometimes if you do not use it, it's quite boring. Then how can you control this problem when you are delivering your speech? Or is it really a problem to us? Thanks.
Okay. Yes, thank you for the question. As I mentioned earlier, body language. And if anybody speaks and uses their hands and their face for like 3 minutes to 7 minutes, you're going to get tired. Yeah, you need a good variety. Some people have a lot of energy, and the people who have a lot of energy need to learn how to reduce it. The people who just stand there and hold onto the microphone they need to learn how to add a bit more. Now, as I was saying earlier, record yourself. If you have a challenge, record yourself and see what body language you do or what body language you don't do. If you think that you have too much body language, then it probably means that you do. If you think you don't have enough body language, then it probably means that you don't have enough body language. This is something that's very individual to your style. And having your own speaking style is important. Not everybody in here is going to speak the way I speak. Okay? Some people might like my style, some people don't like my style. So I'm not going to say you must have a lot of body language, and I'm not going to say you need to have none, because it is up to your individual style and what you feel comfortable with. So what you need to do is record, see what you do, and see if you feel comfortable with that, and see if it looks natural. Then you can ask your friends, if you want to get a second opinion, ask what they think. And if you have 2 or 3 friends who all say the same thing, your body language is so ridiculous, I think you need to get rid of it. And then you realize, okay? And it is a very personal thing of how you want to use your body language. But first of all, it should be very natural, and it should be something that you feel comfortable with. If you feel uncomfortable, then you're going to look uncomfortable when you deliver it. And you've got to work out ways that you feel comfortable with yourself and you feel more confident in the way. Okay. Hope that helps. Yes, okay.
Hello, yeah, excuse me. Due to time factors, we will have one last questions before you deliver your speech. So let's have our last question from the audience, please.
One of the strategies you said was to talk about the pros and cons of something. But for example, if you're talking about the iPad and you're talking about the cons of iPads, then wouldn't that just weaken your speech? Like your argument?
Okay, thank you for that question. When we talk about the pros and the cons, after you've spoken about the cons, then you actually obviously have to debate that back into a pro. So you have to strengthen the argument. When you speak to people, they're going to naturally have questions in their minds. And so by vocally saying that question, you've answered that question in their mind. Mm-hmm. If you don't address that question, they might still sit there and go, yeah, I still don't think I should get you an iPad because I believe that you're just going to play games too much. Yeah? So even though I'm listening to you, I'm still going to have that question in my mind. But by bringing up that question, saying, I know some of you might be thinking that if I get an iPad, I'm going to play games too much. Or you know that I'm going to lose my iPad. But let me tell you, if I buy my iPad, or if every child has an iPad, they're going to be more responsible. They will learn how to be responsible for their own things. And so all of a sudden you're answering that con, and then you're strengthening that message. Okay? So I hope that helps, because naturally people have questions in their minds, very big questions. And sometimes if you address those questions and say how you're going to answer that question, it actually strengthens your point. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yeah, now the speech, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go through it's not even a full speech. I'm going to show you something about how I can use a bit of body language, the vocal variety, the pausing, to create emotion. Okay, to create some emotion. I don't have 7 minutes, and I can't remember I am nervous to deliver a full speech. I'm shaking. So let me tell you a story about when I was younger. Now, there's something about being on time. I hate people who are not on time. Whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It really gets me frustrated. And it's really important for every single one of you in here, as a young adult, to learn how to be on time. There are adults out there who do not like to be on time. You go to a 7 o'clock dinner, and they're there at 7:30. The reason why it's important to be on time goes back to when I was much younger. I remember when I was much younger than you are now, probably 10 or 11. And every Saturday morning, I would go out to the soccer field and I would play soccer with all the other little kids. And it was like a contest to play against other kids. And at the end of the soccer match, all the parents would come around and they'll pick up their boys and they'll go home. Except for me. I was the only little boy left on the soccer field. And back then, there was no mobile phones. I couldn't go on Wi-Fi, my Facebook account. All I could do was wait. I never knew when my dad was going to come pick me up. Sometimes I waited 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, just waiting for my dad. And I felt unloved. I felt unwanted. And so from that point in time, I realized that it's important to be on time. Because when we're not on time, we make people feel unloved and unwanted. And that's something that nobody wants to feel. Okay, so that's a very quick example. I do apologize that it's a little bit heavy, but that's an example of how you can pace yourself and pause and get that emotional interaction with your audience. Next time I'll be more prepared. Next year I'll come up with something more humorous, okay? I'll remember you next year. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, remain on stage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yang. That was very inspiring, and I'm sure a student learns a lot. So would you please like to remain on stage for another moment? We'll have a student representatives to give you some little souvenirs. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Oh, wonderful.
And for the photo taking.
Oh, one in the middle? From the sign? Okay.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I just won first place. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let us give another round of applause to our guest speaker today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's amazing.